Welcome back to the channel, guys. Here we are for another update. We're going to be going through Thursday night's game. What do you know? It's a very familiar face at the top of this list, Reed Mahoney. How good was he? Just puts him in an average of 92 across these two games. But just want to start with some breaking news, guys. We have Andrew Davey, who looks set to get close to an 80-minute role. Possibly will get the 80 minutes. So Sirinen has gone down injured. He's hurt his knee. He should be out between 4 to 6 weeks. So this gives him a runway to score pretty well, and also gives Josefsky a chance to get a few more games and some decent minutes as well. So my thoughts right now is he becomes a really, really good option, obviously for the short term to make some good cash. But if he can play really well, he'd already moved himself into that starting side. So possibly he'll be able to move into an 80-minute role across the season if he plays really well. And there's a chance that he does that. He's someone with a really high work rate, has a tackle bust and an offload in him, so hopefully he can do really well. What I will say is he moves up my ranks. He's now in a clear number 2 as the most important cash cows to bring in this week. I'd say, other than the standard Dane Laurie, Jacob Little, these types of players, the next guy is going to be Spencer Liniu if you don't have him yet. His break even has come right down already, which we'll jump in and have a look at here in Spence. Should be in the right at the bottom, I'm thinking. What is it again? Break in for 12. So he's more chance of making extra cash this week with Davey sitting at 25 break even. So I think he's the more important one to bring in this week. If you need some edge cover, then go Davey straight away. But if you don't have Leniu like myself, he's coming into my team, and then I can see how Davey goes over the first week, and he shouldn't, even if he bangs out a 45 to 50, he won't make too much money. And I've got about 150k spare at the moment, so I should be able to trade someone like Croker to him if he does really well. So I think if it goes Spencer Leniu and then clearly second is Davey, I think he moves very much ahead of someone like Alvaro or Fumayano. So if you need the edge cover, I'd be going Davey first. Anyway, moving into Thursday's game. So yeah, amazing game from Reed Mahoney again. 59 tackles was awesome. Got the try assist as well to go along with 4 points in kick meters and a couple more turnover tackles. So just playing absolutely incredible. And the question now moves to, was that 100 just a fluke, or is he going to be scoring in the mid 60s or 70s regularly? And I think there's a chance that he might move up into the upper echelon. We lose Smith this year. Someone has to come in and fill that gap. Is Cook going to stay there? Is Api Coruscant going to stay up there? You'd think they would. But Mane might be the next guy to average, somewhere around 60 or just above. So I think he's a pretty decent option. I'd probably want to see him over a few more games. He'll probably, he's going to gain a bunch more in price rises and might become too expensive by that point. But if you started with him, amazing work, and you can't really complain with that. There's be a bunch of people that probably started with, Moses and Junior Paulo as well. Paulo got another try to go with it. So Moses doing everything beautifully. He's got 500 kick meters. Anytime someone gets 500 kick meters, they're going to be smashing it. He scored a bunch across the field. 70 run meters, 18 tackles for only 1 miss, 3 tackle breaks, try assists, couple of goals. Really good if you've got him in your side. I wouldn't be looking to target him as a bring-in, just for the fact that there's so many more cheaper guys that are scoring pretty well in Fogarty and Brooks and these types of guys. But awesome option for your team. He kind of did this last year as well, started amazingly and then fell off a little bit through the middle part of the season, and especially when the Eels weren't playing as well. So they've started great again. Let's see how that lasts. Junior Paulo, without that try, he scores somewhere in the high 40s. So for him to get that, in that back end of the game there was really helpful, because he only made 94 meters and had 34 tackles. So without that, he has a bit of a lower score. So just remember, he's not going to score every week. So think about that when you're looking to bring him in. Campbell Gillard had a bunch of these games last year too, where he scored pretty well and got some good minutes. So 65 and 53 minutes is awesome. Didn't really do anything wrong apart from 3 missed tackles. So good efforts from him. Olam had one of those breakout games for him. Got 9 tackle breaks, which you won't do regularly. Brown, welcome back to him. So 42 tackles. How good's that? 250 kick meters and a try assist. So I didn't have to do too much to get his 62, which was awesome. And when you see halves making a lot of tackles and 1 miss, that's really safe. Obviously, he doesn't get the kick meters that Moses does, but he's again going to be a good option this year, especially when Eels are doing really well. The shining light, along with Reed Mahoney, is this Isaiah Papali'i, 61 for a cumulative 2 game score of 115. How amazing is that, hey? Who would have thought you can get, come off the bench and play the rest of the game, 55 minutes for 61 and just doing everything right. Just had another perfect game. One missed tackle out of his 43, three tackle breaks, 75 meters gained and a turnover tackle. You couldn't ask for much more than him and from him. And this is really interesting. He's someone that has scored well in the past. You can see why he's priced in the mid 500s. We may as well have a look at him while we're here for Isaiah. And back in the Warriors days, he's had a bunch of, part way through parts of seasons where he's done really well. And you can see that here. His PPM is always pretty strong. 53 off the interchange for 46, 42 at lock for 46. And then he's someone that can drop off fairly easily as well. As you can see there, had a little bit of a struggler through the interchange. And his PPM wasn't great. And then a bunch more scores at the back end of the year. But you can see when he's playing on the edge, he doesn't go as well. Off the interchange and through the middle, he's much better. So do I think he can sustain these scores? I don't think so. I think there's a chance he could probably average 50 for the year. And he's getting closer to averaging that at the moment. Obviously, he's sitting around just over 40 in his average and what he's priced at. But at a break-in of 31 with that 61 on the weekend, he'll be up closer to in the 570s. Which puts him averaging in the mid 40s there, or getting closer to that. So he only probably has 7 to 10 will give him more points or price that he can get to if he keeps going well. So probably not one I want to think about if he's on the bench. If there's an injury or two to one of the forwards and he has to start playing big minutes, then he could be a good option. But for me, you kind of just have to say well done and move on and not think about him. Sivo, welcome back to him. Had an amazing game. How good was that try at the end? Wow. Yes, George Jennings didn't do anything, didn't even jump, but to run, was it close to 50 meters and catch that and score for the game winner was good to watch. Really fun game to watch, this one. Very much played through the middle of the field. And you can see when Brown has just on the edge there, has 42 tackles, you can tell that it's very much a back and forth game. And I think that's gonna happen a lot this weekend, is if you've got a bunch of guys through the middle and on the edge in terms of your edge forwards and stuff like that, then I think they're gonna score really well with more of a back and forth game. A few less tries being scored possibly with all this wet weather. So Stevo was great. Good to see him back. Welsh with a 55. So he comes out of this game with a 50.5 average for the first two, and that's exactly where I said he was going to score at about 10 points over his average. So if he can keep doing this over the next sort of 3 to 4 weeks, then he'll be priced at a 50 average and get himself up closer to the 700 mark, which will be really cool, and about 150k in price rises. So this was perfect game for someone like Welsh. And God, I was annoyed. There was early in that game where he literally, all Smithy had to do was just a short little pass right in front of the line, and Gutho was back like 2 meters behind the line. No one in front of him, just passed it to him and he just falls over and scores. But it wasn't to be, and I think he passed it to Nelson and he got held up over the line. It was a Nelson, I'm not sure. Got held up over the line, but really happy with what Welsh did. Didn't have any turnover tackles this time. 41 tackles, 3 misses, couple of attacking stats. Awesome work for him if you've got him in your side. Hughes was back to his normal best, got his 30 tackles. So as I said, there was a lot of scores in the 50s and 60s compared to last Thursday's game with the Storm. I think this one was much better for fantasy scores. And if you had sort of 3 to 4 players in this game, you did really well. I personally had Welch, Opacek, and Pappy. So we'll talk about Pappy now. Had a really slow start to the game and then came in and got that the sneaky try assist of a couple of kicks there and snuck through for a line break. But someone to get 249 meters is exactly what you want in a keeper wing fullback there. And it's something that you don't get from a lot of players, but when you do, these guys like RTS, Pappenhausen, you lock them in and their low scores are going to be in the 30s and their high scores are going to be in the 70s. So he's someone that was great. And there was a funny little message on one of the Facebook groups there where someone was like, yeah, unlucky for those who picked Pappy, blah, blah, blah. And then he had an egg on his face at the end of the game when he snuck a 52. But this Nathan Brown situation is very interesting. So I think Isaiah Papali'i is taking a few of Brown's minutes. So for them both to play the same, there was a lot of games last year where Brown played between 60 and 70 minutes. And to get 54 is a bit annoying because a lot of people were thinking you'd get somewhere between the 60 and 70. And at his high PPM of 0.8, 0.9, he's going to get around that 60 mark. So, someone that works really hard. Just his missed tackles are a little bit of an issue, and you could tell that with Welsh a little bit. He just misses a few from being really aggressive in the line, which is what helps them get a lot of tackles. But then they'll throw the arm out and just miss the tackle that way, and it can be really annoying at points. But yeah, Brown's a little bit frustrating at the moment because he's priced at 54 and he's now averaging 48.5. So nothing too alarming. I think those minutes are with Papali'i though, when you've got Paulo and RCG playing decent minutes as well. So something to keep note of. Nakore played in the centres and scored pretty well, but not someone we're going to talk about. Sean Lane, 48. Welcome back a little bit, but not someone we want to think about. Munster was kind of just a very normal game in 45, and if you picked him up, I'd be a little bit worried that he's going to improve. He's someone that's always scored around that 50 or low 50s mark, and then will have an injury or two affected game and finish off around that 50. So he's an interesting one to think about. And Smith just had the exact same type of game that he had last week in that 45 in 70 minutes. Which for him is the base. I've spoken to a few people about it. That's clearly Smithy's base if he plays that 70 minutes, and he just looks so gassed. Like, I reckon he could have done with an extra 10 minutes rest, but I took him off at 70 and that was fine. But with him, you need the attacking stats, and he hasn't got that in the first two games. That sneaky line break up through the middle. And I think over the next week or two, like if you give him 4 weeks, I think he's gonna have one game where he gets a try or gets a line break and an assist or something like that to get closer to 70. But if you bought him looking to make a bit of cash out of him, I think that's not going to happen. Unfortunately, he's not someone that's making 50 tackles to get him up into that 55, 60 range. So that's a little bit annoying. Kafusi, they might lose him for a couple of weeks with that elbow to Madison, and we obviously haven't seen Madison score yet, but he's in the much lower down the list. So a little bit frustrating for him, and it'll be interesting to see who takes his spot. Kamakamika is obviously a middle. He got 42 in 48 minutes. It looked like he's capped out with his minutes. He's pretty cooked by the end of that stint. But doing okay for anyone who wanted to bring him in. I think he's going to average about that 40 mark, which he is at the moment. I don't see much change unless he gets attacking stats. Remus Smith, I hope a few people decide to keep him, and that's going to kickstart a few price rises. So well done to that. He had a decent little try in the centres, and it could be pretty quickly. I think he'll move on to the wing because that edge pairing was a struggle in defence. Let's just say that. But 19 tackles for 2 misses, you take that as well. Gutho 41 with 3 try saves. God, he was good in defence. There was one he was like reaching out over the line and he like knocked it out, which was great. Again, not someone I want to be thinking about as an option. Nelson, not that great. Kenny, not great. Addo, all right. I'll check. Bloke was on 34 with about 15 minutes to go. I was cheering. Does anyone else think he's really good in defence? Like 20 tackles, 2 misses, and one of them was like when he chased him down and like tried to put a hand on him. So really, really strong in defence. Makes about 100 meters a game and hasn't had really any attacking stats yet. And he's averaging 33.5 and will make us a bit of cash already. So wait for the game where he scores a try or something like that, or gets an assist, and he's going to bump that up. And I think he's going to be really cool. Someone that I think I can just hold in my team for a while, which would be great. Madison with 31, so he was doing fine in his 46 minutes, but unfortunately got knocked out. And the interesting worry will be, will he be able to play next week? And if he's out for a few weeks with a lingering concussion issue, which he's had in the past, then you'd probably be looking to sell him if it's sort of 2 to 3 weeks, just with him now going to be losing a fair bit of cash. So yes, he's probably going to be a keeper, but if it's 2 to 3 weeks at this stage of the season, you could probably burn a trade there, depending on who you're bringing it into. You want to be bringing in a like for like keeper or someone that's a perfect cash cow that you can make some good coin on. But the rest of it, Fergo came back down to earth and got 19, and that was really all from this one. Oregon Kafusi 27 after his 31 in the first game. Again, we'll make a little bit of cash, but you can see what happens if these players around that 300, 350 mark don't get 40 plus, then they're going to be very, very slow cash cows. But there you go, guys. That's my thoughts on Thursday's game. Let me know what you thought of the game and how you think this weekend's going to play out. But I definitely think those middles are going to get some really good scores, and your wing fullbacks will be lucky to sneak. I reckon they're going to be sneaking more line breaks and stuff through the middle with if they can get their steps going and some tired defense through the middle. There might be some chance for line breaks, but there you go, guys. That's my thoughts on that one. Hope you enjoyed it, and we'll see you in the next one.